introducing Zuri. And Zuri, thank you so much for your business pitch and good luck to you. I'd now like to introduce our next set of panelists who will be joining us for entrepreneurs and content creators. If Mobolaji, if Preston, if Pierre, if others could start to join us online right now so we can get this panel started.
Good afternoon, actually.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good evening to some.
I think we have everybody on the panel, right?
All right.
What's going on?
What's up, Pierre?
How's it going, brother? How's it going? So, no, thank you for taking the time today, especially on a Friday. I know we're all busy. I know that we've had the pleasure of hearing some interesting speakers today, some motivating speakers, some young talent that's out there. The young brother that just presented, very impressive, and I personally look forward to being helpful to him. Today's topic is in regards to just really supporting Black entrepreneurs. And I'm fortunate to be running a panel with some very interesting, polished, and just intelligent brothers, right, that are doing a variety of things as it pertains to entrepreneurship, content creation, and so forth. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity for us to be able to pick their brains. I have some questions that are listed already, and really just, be able to talk about the experience of being an entrepreneur and what that means. So what I'll do is I'll defer to the panel and give everybody 60 seconds to introduce themselves. And then from there, we'll get into some of the questions. I won't take the full 60, I'll just give you a quick 30. So Pierre Leveaux from Los Angeles. I was a banker at Goldman for 10 years, went to business school at UVA, Darden School of Business. I now work at a digital marketing agency running private equity and venture capital on their behalf. So my day-to-day is really talking to venture capital and private equity and investment professionals and asking or encouraging them to use our diligence technology as a part of their diligence process. So thank you again for having me. Looking forward to really exploring the minds of the entrepreneurs that are on the panel. So what I'll do is maybe we'll go in alphabetical order by first name. So where's brother? Where's there? Ilbert, are you there?
Ilbert, yeah, I'm here. I'm here, good brother. My name is Ilbert J. Sanchez. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm co-founder, CEO of Garon Couture. I'm born in Honduras. I'm raised in the South Bronx. I actually launched, me and my business partner, which was my college roommate, we launched Garon Couture in 2016. We have a showroom here in New York City, Grand Central, and we also have one in Miami as well. What we do is bespoke clothing. Everything is from head to toe, custom. We do tuxedos, coats, turtlenecks. We've done over 100, over 200, 500 weddings. We've done the Emmys. We've done the Golden Globe Awards, NBA awards, you name it. We've styled a few members of cast of the Power cast, Joel Embiid, a bunch of people from like day one that we've been dressing and just making clothes from scratch, and then just strengthening the Black dollar, on a day-to-day basis. Garon Couture.
Thank you, bro.
Say it again.
No, just, introduce yourself, brother. 60 seconds in terms of who you are, your background, what you're working on. That'll be great for the group.
For sure. Marcus Allen, graduate North Carolina A&T State University. Moved to Washington, D.C., working in government contracting. And my partner and I got the seed through learning about Earth Day to begin to mobilize people in a similar vein, to begin to try to build healthy urban communities. And we realized that we had a knack for mobilizing people through large events and began to produce large events across the country. One of those events ended up becoming Broccoli City Festival, which launched in 2013. And since then, we've been pretty successful and has grown to, a single day event with about 40,000 urban millennials and Gen Zs. Marcus Allen.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate your time. Mobolaji?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. And again, I'm first of all just honored to be on the panel with these brothers here. Very well accomplished. My name is Mobolaji Akintunde, born and raised in Chicago. The origin of my last name is both parents are Nigerian, first generation. Little background: I've been in the music business for well over 10 years. Started managing talent. Really realized the beauty of brands. From there, started my own brand shop, helping small and medium-sized businesses in the arts and creative and food and beverage to really identify who their audience are and determine their MVP. And in the last 4 years, found myself working with a client in tech that now drove me into being now VP of Business Development and Partnerships for a tech firm here in Chicago.
Perfect. Thank you for your time. Your background looks like my background. I'm joking, bro.
One of the
I'm in my
guys
kid's room. I got my daughter's lights in the back. That's as good as it gets, you know. But no, pleasure to have you this morning. We'll go with Ray next.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Ray McKenzie. I was born and raised Atwater, California, in the kind of the middle of California. Nobody knows about it, San Diego State. I'm the founder and CEO of StartingPoint, which is a SaaS customer operations and experience platform for companies and teams. And I'm the founder and managing director of Red Beach Advisors, which is a technology management consulting company focused on strategy, operational efficiency, and digital transformation. Honored to obviously be on the panel with all of you gentlemen. Founded Red Beach Advisors in 2014, founded StartingPoint in 2019, and looking forward to obviously to this discussion.
Thanks, Ray. Always a pleasure catching up with you, man. So let's get into it. So quickly, before we have this panel, I reached out to each panelist and want to get a real understanding of their background beyond what's stated in their bios. And this is what I grabbed. So for Ilbert, it's more so, his experience in betting on himself. So I want him to make sure that he explicitly talks about that in the presentation. For Marcus, what he's doing, the work he's doing is very much so mission driven. So I want to make sure that we emphasize that, and that's a takeaway for the group. For Ray, he and I have chatted in many instances about the nuances of starting a business and what that actually means and how we define it, and being educated in terms of that decision. And then lastly, with Mobolaji, just really his experience from a branding, and we had a great conversation about communication, about many ways of communication. So those are some of the key takeaways that I want to make sure that the panelists speak to throughout this discussion. I want to make sure that the audience is able to grasp as well. So on that note, in terms of communication, Mobolaji, a lot of the prompted questions today speak about COVID and how we've transition, right, in terms of positioning ourselves as entrepreneurs, positioning our firms, positioning our efforts, thinking about going digital, right? So my question to you would be, how has COVID amplified the quote unquote influencer movement, and what trends do you think will persist after we resolve COVID and we push through it?
Excellent. It's funny that you asked me that question. I remember speaking to that to a colleague of mine a few weeks ago, but so what's been happening, you probably, folks about it been noticing this, especially with in the music business, is, a lot of people have been impacted by not being able to make money, right? Touring is stopped, from a restaurant standpoint, certain cities you can't even dine in, and some folks are with the next wave of closing, right? So what do you do in a time like this? I generally advise, and we've had other great thought leaders that have said echoed similar things, is now is a great opportunity to maybe put the money aside, but really start to build your tribe and your audience. Leveraging tools like a Zoom, leveraging tools like Instagram and Facebook and other social platforms. It's really now the opportunity to give more to your audience and identify with those folks that are really that really take to what it is you have to offer from your content to your story. So it's being more engaged, be more interested in delivering great content to your audience, and put the cash register aside for a moment, because the idea is that, if you can really win the hearts and you continue to give your audience that which they care about, right? Then as you then move back into monetizing, whether it be your likeness, your music, your writings, whatever that may be, you're now in a better position to monetize with those folks that you've won the hearts of. The other thing that I've seen, and it's kind of interesting because what I do from a technology standpoint is I'm a business development for a membership platform. Right. And so one of the things that we've been seeing, the trend is going from what we call that one-time transaction to that forever transaction. So that whole reoccurring model, subscription, sustainability. So that's one of the things I've been sharing with a lot of my clients now, is start to look at continue giving great content to your core audience while building this new business model that's now having them pay you ongoingly, whether monthly or annually, for access to that content. So that's where I've been advising, and that's where we've been seeing a lot of the trends. We work with a lot of private social clubs, and they haven't really been that impacted by COVID. We've been seeing a lot of restaurants that have been running to us because they realize that one-time transaction is not going to meet their bottom line over time. So now they're reverting to a business model that's what we call the forever transaction. So that's what I was saying.
Gotcha. Always appreciate your gems. Ilbert or Marcus, I would imagine that, in the space that both of you operate, influencing and just being thoughtful about how you're positioning oneself online and digital plays a relevant role. Would either one of you be willing to add or any other gems that maybe Mobolaji didn't cover?
Yeah, I'll add on to that. And Pierre, it's Ilbert. It was just for correction. I like correction, Ilbert.
Thank you, bro.
So for us, 80% of our business was in person, being that, people are getting married or they have like prom, they need to get measured, they need to actually look at fabric and touch it. So our shop online really wasn't something that we really like honed in on when it came to sales and revenue. So during this pandemic, we've had to pivot. So what we did was we took 60% of our sales to make sure that those would be attributed into anything that's online. So what we did, we started doing more product shots. We started actually enhancing all of our looks online in order for people to want to just shop from home instead of them seeing us in person, because we actually closed our shops for 4 months. So it did impact us, and then we was forced to pivot, but we used everything to put things on our shop online. I'm a UX, my background is UX UI work. So I started just looking back into like what I've done originally, being able to actually have a complete user experience online for our clientele, for them to order a suit comfortably, for them to order a peacoat with no issues, right? And then we also added our Shopify content on the background to put that on social media. So now that's, if you guys realize, Instagram has like the shop thing on Instagram, and it's automatically there now. It used to be like you have to search for it. So there's a marketplace for shop. So we use that now where people go on Instagram, and then we have our own shop, which is connected to our Shopify, which with that is connected to our website and our e-commerce. So now we make it easier for the client, where if we post a regular photo of a lifestyle shot, when you tap it, it says the price of the image of the product, and they can purchase it right there and then. And that helps us with the revenue, and they don't have to even make an appointment to get what they want. They get their whether it's a turtleneck or a button up or a whole suit, they'll get it within 3 weeks, and just from like the comfort of their home. So I would definitely recommend for you to hire a UX UI person, for you to actually purchase someone who actually invest in someone who's good at Google sales, Instagram ads, Google ads. These are things that help us pivot as well, where we just magnified all of the details on the e-commerce backend for the website and for our social media assets.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And before I get to Ray, because you made a great comment about like in terms of hiring somebody, right? And so Ray and I always talk about like investing in oneself or investing in your company and being thoughtful about that. But before that, Marcus, any thoughts? Because you're effectively in the events business, mission-driven events business. How does digital, change the realm of what you're doing? Some of the ideas that these brothers have presented. Do you think that it's going to be sustainable? Not necessarily sustainable. Yeah, will it be sustainable moving forward? Is this the new normal, I guess, or any other kind of gems you want to drop from that perspective?
So I think from our perspective, from the live space, I think it's two parts. It's pivot. It's obviously pivoted to digital. There's been a lot more digital conferences, digital performances. I think on the digital conference side, I think that realistically, I think a lot of organizations will have a hard time convincing themselves to spend millions of dollars to put on full productions. I think the digital environment in the conference, like what we're doing now, is probably going to be here to stay. Of course, you'll have some conferences that come back, but I think there will be major extensions in terms of digital. So I think the on-site environment for conferences will still be there to some degree, but I think digital and monetizing pay-per-view and that sort of thing is something that would definitely peak its head. I think from a live performance space, I think that, of course, we've seen a lot of people do performances. I don't believe that it transitions. I don't think there's anything that can really replace live performances in terms of going to a show. I think that right now we're taking what we can get. You know, we appreciate getting a chance to see our artists, but trust me, you know, they're not looking to make money and figure out how they can monetize their career through doing performances online. They're looking to get back out there. They're looking to do stuff. And there's a trickle down that comes with that. And so obviously from our world, we've been able to transition our business from, you know, doing live shows, performances, and that sort of thing, to where we in July launched a drive-in movie theater at RFK Stadium. And so I think it's just about being able to leverage your relationship. RFK is the same location we host the DC Festival. Those are the same folks I've had relationships for 5 or 10 years. So the conversation, the transition, knowing that they don't got no revenue coming in either, was a match made in heaven. So I think, you know, in these phases, it's about kind of leveraging your resources and leveraging the fact that you know that other people are in the same space as you. And I think that's really the blessing, is that for once, everybody was on the same playing field. Everybody's messed up. So you don't got to call somebody with a nervous voice, because you know they ain't got no money coming in either. Everybody like, oh, thank God you called. You know what I'm saying?
Literally, right?
So no, I think that's kind of what my thoughts are in terms of the transition of live in terms of events and that sort of thing.
Perfect. I appreciate that. So just to kind of connect the dots. So, you know, so it was loosely, we talked about the transition in digital. We talked about, you know, investing in oneself. And then Marcus just brought up the idea of relationships. So I just want to hand it over to Ray, because we had a very explicit conversation in terms of, like, you know, this whole concept and this hype around being an entrepreneur, right? But, you know, you talk to people and they say, I want to be an entrepreneur, but many people aren't as familiar in terms of what that entails. So Ray, if you could talk about, you know, the nuances of entrepreneurship, again, you know, alluding to investing in self, and really just the relationship piece in terms of, like, in a COVID environment, right? Like, we can't go out for drinks anymore, right? And so, or at least now, right, in California, to build those relationships. And if you can give us some quick points on that, and I'll open it back up to the groups. I'm sure that the group has other thoughts on that as well.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, it's, I guess, in an easy way, in a short, concise statement, being an entrepreneur is hard. It's extremely hard. I mean, there's different points in your business to where definitely you believe you've created something that's fantastic and that works well. And then something like COVID happens, or some other dynamic in your business happens, and you've got to pivot, you've got to adjust, you've got to maneuver around what you're doing, definitely to keep the vision and the mission going forward. That's never easy. You know, as an entrepreneur, gosh, I started my first business in 2014, Red Beach Advisors, and that spawned out of, you know, a need that CEOs had, and they were contacting me for that. And then, you know, that highlights all of the things you're not strong at as an entrepreneur. You know, you can't do everything by yourself. And then you have to go out and find appropriate help or guidance to kind of help you move forward and grow your business. And that ties back into the networking piece, you know, and Pierre and I, obviously, we talk about this often, is finding good people that can be a solid resource for you and moving forward and moving your company forward, and being able to find dependable people who can help you or be resources for you moving forward. Knowing people is extremely valuable in terms of growing your business, building your business, and scaling your business. It's always easier to leverage your current network, leverage either an alumni network, leverage your fraternity network, just have those conversations with people. And now we're in this world to where, like Pierre said, we're not able to go and have drinks. We're not able to necessarily go and sit inside and go have dinner in certain places. And with that, you know, we have to find different ways. So, you know, we're heavy on WhatsApp, we're heavy on text, we're heavy on Zoom, we're heavy on social media, and
LinkedIn,
and LinkedIn as well, and build a lot of those relationships, and just say, hey, can I just have a 10-15 minute call? Let's get to know each other. And that's really the best way to try to get to know each other. I think everybody that's on these panels today, in terms of, you know, Walker's legacy, will make themselves available just to have a phone call. You know, it's always good to make the world smaller. And, feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure everybody else on the panel, feel free to reach out to them and via LinkedIn or other methods. And let's continue to have these conversations and make the world a little bit smaller so we can all help each other out.
So we have about 9 more minutes, and I want to take this time to kind of get raw and a little bit dirty in terms of like entrepreneurship. There was a question from the panel just in terms of, how does one deal with stress in uncertain times? And I think it also, that comment feeds into my comment about, investing, or betting on oneself, right? And, as an entrepreneur myself, there's a concept that I subscribe to, is that it's expensive being cheap, right? In many instances, we don't have the resources to make big investments. Like every dollar we have to make it stretch, right? We're bootstrapping to the extent that many of our peers that are majority members don't have to endure. So I'll leave it up to the group. Let me know, walk me through your process in terms of betting on yourself, thoughts about it. Mr. Sanchez, you can go first, because I know we talked explicitly in terms of your journey.
And I'm gonna try to make this short and quick. I think for betting on myself is pretty much just the people that are around you, and just for me, I meditate a lot. I usually meditate every single day, within 10 to 20 minutes. It's mandatory for me to stay grounded, even if I'm on the high or on the low. I need to meditate to make sure I can actually go on with my day. And for me, it's like just having a team of integrity and just being transparent with your team, because there's no way we could do any of this alone. None of us here can do any of this alone. So just having people that you can trust, and just having a positive mindset, because it's easier said than done. For me, I'm usually reading books like The Four Agreements, the Law of Power. So I read these books that keep me motivated and just keep me accountable for myself, and just honing on what the goal is, as far as expanding and growing at the rate that I'm going, and just staying grounded every single day.
Mobolaji, we talked about communication and really just in terms of teamwork and just individual experience. Do you want to talk about that in terms of, how that plays out, one in the form of betting on oneself, and then two in terms of de-stressing or de-risking in many respects?
Yeah, my fundamental is always being in communication, right? And Mr. Sanchez kind of spoke to, he mentioned integrity. And I kind of tie communication and integrity. Integrity in my world is knowing the right thing to do and doing it, right? And and that's being on time, right? And if you can't be on time, as an example, you communicating that you're going to be late, because there's always an impact on the other person, right? Or the group of people. So it's being in communication. When you're dealing with stress, especially during these times, be in communication, right? Because for one, that other person you're communicating with, or group of people you're communicating with, can also be dealing with stress. Collectively, as human beings, just and just how we God created us. No one man can carry it, or one woman can carry it all by themselves. So it's definitely team, and also ongoingly, authentically being in communication with your team and your group, and just sharing authentically where you're at. That's fundamentally what I would say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And in terms of the de-stress, I think that for us as Black entrepreneurs, there's a level of stress that we put on ourselves, and there's just a random inherent pressure to be the biggest. My idea has to be the next Uber. My idea has to be the next Facebook, or a monster idea. And I constantly work with entrepreneurs on a daily basis, and I've seen entrepreneurs live very successful lives doing $5 million of revenue a year, $1 million of revenue a year, right? $500,000 of revenue a year. They're putting people to work, and they're living very comfortable and exciting and very fulfilled lives, right? And it's they don't have to have a $5 million valuation. So when I think about balancing that, that urgency that we have, because we're all successful men on the panel, or people in general, I want to remind us that we don't have to be the next biggest thing. And so in that respect, Marcus, when I think about what you're doing, and you can easily be the next Live Nation, right? But the reality is, your efforts are more mission driven, and there's a lot of value in going that route as well. So it would be great if you can really talk about that in terms of how do you balance being this next big corporate entity, and maybe you're going to do both, right? But how do you balance, the excitement about being this next big corporate entity, but also being in tune with yourself in terms of adding value beyond, traditional means?
Yeah, I mean, for one, at the level that we are, our productions are so big. for us to mitigate risk, we've been in partnership with Live Nation for the past 3 or 4 years. No, I'm lying. We've been in partnership with Live Nation since 2018. It really just came down to, as we began to expand, the productions, multi-million-dollar. And so, for us, it was about how do we get a partner that, one, we can maintain ownership. That was number one. We wanted to maintain all equity ownership. And we wanted to also be with a partner that allowed us to build our brand as we saw. There was a lot of different private partners that wanted to come in and work with us, but the value really came in working with Live Nation and negotiating a situation where everybody understood their value. Ultimately they came in to play bank for us, and we came in to play, the largest Black-owned festival that they have in their portfolio. And so I think that it ultimately became a situation where there was value on both sides, and they understood the deepness of the mission, and that a part of the reason why our success was the fact that we were mission driven. There was a reason why our tickets were priced like this. It was a reason why we roll out our marketing the way that we do. It was a reason why we give away, a few thousand tickets for people who volunteer in local communities. Like, all of the narrative that went into it made sense. And we just were happen to be blessed that the folks that were sitting on the other side of the table understood that for them to make money, they needed to allow us to do us. And so, going back to partnerships, I think it's about choosing partners as you begin to grow. And if mission is a drive, you have to choose partners that, one, are willing to compromise what their traditionally financial only driven model to some other KPIs. And so for us, it was about, staying locked in onto our mission. And over time, we had this mission about, living healthy, living more sustainable. When we launched the festival back in 2013, those are just buzzwords. Like, nobody was talking Earth Day. Nobody was talking about, healthy living in the Black community. Like, there was things that people said that we needed to do, but nobody was really doing it. And so ultimately the world kind of confined to, oh man, as Black people, we need to live more healthy. We need to be more sustainable. What about food deserts? And all these terms that we were talking about back in 2013 ultimately came right back into our lens. And so we never changed our mission. It was just that everything lined up with what the conversation was around the world. And so for us, sometimes it's about staying down and just continuing to believe in your direction and the value and the things that you're trying to do in these communities. Because sometimes you can easily, to your point, you can easily make that decision and say, you know what, the mission matters, but this investment and this growth matters more. And so, we were kind of stifled in terms of our growth for about 2 or 3 years. And, lucky for us, we just stayed down.
So we got about 30 seconds. I'm going to pass it over to Ray. There was a question in the audience, and I was actually getting ready to speak to this. It's very important for us as Black entrepreneurs to protect the cap table, right? So you're talking about partnerships. Like, how much of your business do you give up? People are like, I want to grow. I want to sell equity. I'm thinking about financing my business. Do I, maintain debt? So Ray, when people think about equity, they typically forget that you are literally giving up a piece of your business, right? Or you may be forced to deviate from the mission, as what Marcus was just discussing. If you can kind of end us, Ray, on that note in terms of your thoughts about financing, protecting the cap table, or any gem on that end would be helpful.
For sure. With Red Beach Advisors, my consulting firm, that's wholly owned by myself. That's going to be the business that I maintain for the next, 30, 40 years of, my life. All my investments are there. It's all a consulting business. It's kind of a lifestyle business for the most part. StartingPoint itself is obviously a SaaS platform. We're kind of a tech startup. We are a tech startup. And, protecting ownership just depends on, what your end goal is in terms of the business, where you want to go and where you want to take it, and what your exit strategy is. If you have an exit strategy to where you just want to continue to run your business or possibly have a lifestyle business, I know that was one of the comments, and then maybe you just want to go the slow route and continue to grow slowly and build your company. However, if you do want to accelerate growth, at some point there is a trade-off between accepting outside capital and then it being able to grow faster, and what your plans are for doing so. And so that all depends on, what you and your vision is for your company. You know, I just talked to a CEO yesterday. They raised upwards of $5 million for their startup, and he gave up a significant chunk of his business. But his goal is to make his business $100 million a year revenue business. So if you want to do that, sometimes you have to gauge what makes sense and what doesn't for your company. And so think about that. When you're starting your business, what's your exit strategy? You know, where do you want to go? How do you want to proceed? What's your end goal? What also builds a great life for you and your family going forward? Is it something that you want to run for the next 40 years? Or is it something that you want to, you know, build for the next 7 to 10, 10 to 12 years and then exit and go out and retire? So I think in terms of equity, always have those discussions with your team to figure out what everybody's end goal is, you know, and then manage those expectations. So
I appreciate that. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you to the panelists for dropping gems today. Don't allow this. Let's collectively, guys, let's not allow this to be the last time we chat. Make sure you reach out to the panel and follow with them, support them on Instagram, social media, support their businesses directly. And I just wanted to say thank you again. And you know, moving forward, I hope that everything works out in your favor. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Awesome.